In the quiet town of Willow Creek, Pastor Elijah wasn't just a man of God, he was family to everyone. Known for his deep sermons and gentle soul, he guided the community through births, funerals, heartbreak, and healing. But on October 19, 1982, something unholy happened. That morning he parked his car by the forest's edge, just outside the town cemetery. His Bible lay open on the dashboard, a verse circled in red. "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest." He never returned. Search teams scoured the dense forest. Dogs sniffed, helicopters flew. All they found was one torn page from his Bible, caught on a thorn bush deep in the woods. No footprints, no struggle, no blood, just silence. The town went into mourning. His church stayed locked. The pulpit remained untouched for years, as if the walls still waited for him to return. But whispers started. Elijah knew something. He mentioned shadows in the woods. Maybe it wasn't just prayer drawing him out that day. For 4 decades it was just a local tragedy, a sad, unsolved mystery. Until 41 years later, a logger named Thomas Briggs, working the far edge of Willow Creek Forest, was cutting down a dying tree. As the machine dug into the roots, it caught something hard. Thinking it was just a rock, Thomas kicked it. But what he saw next turned his blood cold. Half buried beneath the roots was a metal cross, corroded but unmistakable, the same one Pastor Elijah always wore. And just beneath it, something even worse. Bones. Human bones, wrapped in cloth embroidered with scripture. Thomas stumbled back, heart racing, phone shaking in his hand. "Dispatch, I think I found a body." The mystery of Pastor Elijah's disappearance was no longer a question. The bones were real. The cross was Pastor Elijah's. But it was what they found next that turned the entire town upside down. Police arrived at the site within the hour. Yellow tape wrapped around the dying tree, and forensic teams began their work. But the tree's stump held secrets of its own. One officer, kneeling near the exposed roots, noticed something odd: scratches. Not natural ones. They were carved, deep and deliberate, hidden beneath layers of bark and decay. When they cleared the mud, 5 chilling words appeared: "They will bury the truth." Everyone froze. Who wrote it? Was it Elijah's final message, or someone else's warning? The coroner confirmed the bones were human male, roughly the right age, and likely had been buried there for over 40 years. But that wasn't all. Tucked inside the decomposed cloth was a small leather-bound notebook, sealed in wax. The initials EM were engraved on the cover. Elijah Matthews. Detectives opened it carefully. Inside, faded ink told a haunting story. "If this is ever found, it means I was right. They came to me in confession thinking I would protect them. But evil wears suits in Willow Creek, and now they want silence. If I disappear, start with the church basement." The church. The same church that had been closed for decades, sealed after Elijah vanished, untouched. Sheriff Mickelson, now in his 60s, remembered that day in 1982. He was a young deputy back then, the one who found Elijah's car. He recalled how the elders of the church insisted no one look too deeply into Elijah's disappearance. And now he was starting to wonder, had they been protecting the town, or hiding a secret? The notebook ended with a final line: "The truth is beneath the altar." As news spread, the townspeople gathered at the chapel gates, staring at the rotting doors. For years they thought the forest held the answer. But now, it seemed the real horror might have been inside the church all along. The church had been sealed for 41 years. Its doors were swollen shut from decades of rain and rot. But when Sheriff Mickelson raised the crowbar and forced them open, the smell hit first. Old wood, dust, and something else. Something wrong. Flashlights swept across the sanctuary. The pulpit stood as it had in 1982, covered in cobwebs, the Bible still open to the last passage Elijah ever preached. Luke 12:2, "Nothing is covered that will not be revealed." And now, it was time to uncover it all. The sheriff led the team to the front of the chapel. The altar looked normal until one officer tapped the floor beneath it. A hollow sound. They pried it open. Below was a narrow staircase, hidden beneath a removable slab. Dusty, cramped, pitch black. As the team descended into the forgotten basement, their flashlights flickered over rows of shelves, old robes, crates of candles, and then a door, made of iron. Rusted shut, bolted from the outside. Who or what had been locked in? They forced it open. And what they found inside froze them to the core. Chains, rusty shackles, bolted to the wall. a rotting wooden chair with dried blood on the seat, and carved into the stone just above eye level, "Repent." In the corner, a pile of cassette tapes sat in a crate marked Confessions, dozens of them, each labeled with names, some of them familiar names, town elders, business owners, even a former mayor. Sheriff Michelson's hands trembled as he picked one up. It was labeled April 3rd, 1982, Henry Talbot. That was the church treasurer at the time. They popped the tape into an old recorder. A voice crackled through. "Forgive me, Pastor, I never meant to kill her. We only wanted to scare her, but she fell. The others said we should bury her and move on." Suddenly, it all made sense. Pastor Elijah had heard something he wasn't supposed to. Something the town's leaders would do anything to bury. But they didn't bury a secret. They buried a man. And now, the truth was rising from the grave. When the first tape played, the room went silent. On the crackling recorder, Henry Talbot, a respected man, now long dead, was heard weeping, confessing to manslaughter, burying a girl in the woods, and covering it all up. But that wasn't the worst part. Elijah said he'd go to the police. We begged him to stay silent, but he said judgment belonged to God. And that sealed his fate. By the next morning, news of the tapes had leaked. Someone on the sheriff's team had copied them, posted clips online, labeled Confessions of Willow Creek, the truth Elijah died for. The internet caught fire. The town was thrown into chaos. People who had grown up admiring these elders now saw them as monsters. Children cried, wives questioned their husbands, graves were vandalized, old wounds reopened. But it wasn't just the past they had to face, because one name on the tapes was still alive. Jacob Weaver, a retired judge, living peacefully in his farmhouse just outside town, one of the last surviving elders from Elijah's time. The tape labeled with his name was short but brutal. "We voted, 3-2, lock him up until he listens." But he refused. So we made it permanent. Sheriff Michelson took it straight to the district attorney. An arrest warrant was signed within hours. But when they got to Jacob Weaver's home, he was gone. The house was cold, a teacup still warm, back door open. Footprints in the mud. Vanished, just like Elijah once had. Except, this time, someone left a note on the table, scrawled in shaky penmanship, "The roots go deeper than you think." That night, Sheriff Michelson sat alone in the church, staring at the pulpit. He whispered, "Who else knew?" And from the rafters above something creaked. He turned his flashlight upward, and what he saw wasn't alone. Sheriff Michelson raised his flashlight. Above the pulpit, hidden in the rafters, a frail figure crouched, his skin pale, eyes wide, beard unkempt. He looked like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. "Who are you?" Michelson asked, gun half raised. The man didn't move. Then, he whispered, "You're too late. They'll never let the truth out, not the whole truth." The man's name was Matthew Harper. He had been Elijah's assistant in the early 80s, a quiet man, forgotten by time. And according to town records, he died in 1990. But he didn't. He hid, and he'd been living in the church attic ever since. He told the sheriff everything. The secret meetings, the girl they tried to silence, the night Elijah confronted them. They tied him up, not to kill him at first, just to scare him, but he kept preaching, even in chains, kept praying. They couldn't break him. Matthew had tried to stop them, but he was threatened too, so he fled. Hid, survived off donations left at the church doorstep, and watched as the town forgot. But he never stopped writing. From a hidden compartment in the attic, he pulled out a weathered leather-bound journal. Elijah's real journal. The pages were haunting. Drawings of faces, cryptic scriptures, and entries like, "There is more than murder here. There is ritual, something older, something evil. These men, they wear faith like a mask." Sheriff Michelson flipped to the final page. "They meet at the old well in Greystone Grove. That's where the girl was buried. That's where I'll go next." That entry was dated October 18th, 1982, one day before he vanished. Greystone Grove, a cursed part of the woods, abandoned, forbidden, said to be haunted for generations. Matthew trembled. He never made it back from there. Sheriff Michelson stood, heart heavy. They thought they had uncovered the truth, but they had only scratched the surface. The real secret was still buried in the forest. Greystone Grove had always been whispered about, a cursed patch of woods, no birds, no animals. Even the trees leaned like they were trying to get away. That morning, Sheriff Michelson led a forensic team into the grove, armed with Elijah's journal, Matthew's map, and a fire in their hearts to end this once and for all. They moved deeper, past thorn-covered trails and crooked trees, until they reached it. The old well. Surrounded by cracked stones and rotting prayer candles, as if someone had once tried to bless the place, they removed the wooden cover, and what they found inside? Bones, not just Elijah's, but multiple skeletons, layered beneath one another, some small, some recent, and carved into the inner well wall in shaking hands. They took her because she knew, and they buried me because I wouldn't forget. Elijah hadn't just died for knowing a secret. He died trying to protect a girl who had discovered what the town's leaders were doing. And when Elijah tried to reveal it, they silenced both. That evening, authorities arrested 3 more surviving elders, all now in their 70s. DNA linked them directly to the burial site. Their fingerprints, still on the cassette tapes. One confessed immediately. The town of Willow Creek fell into mourning, for the girl they never named, for the pastor they left behind, and for the innocents that had rotted beneath their own feet. Matthew Harper was taken in for treatment, finally free from hiding. The church was reopened, not for sermons, but as a memorial, a place where the names of the lost were engraved into the stone floor. Elijah's journal, now in a museum titled Faith in the Face of Darkness. And as for the well, it was filled with soil, wildflowers planted, a plaque placed above it, the truth was buried here. But it grew back stronger. And every October 19th the town gathers at the spot to remember the man who vanished and the secrets that should have never been hidden. Please like, share, and subscribe.